Welcome to the Elements of Success podcast with Johnny Dawson. This is the show that will inspire you to uncover your formula for success so you take charge of your story, overcome life's obstacles, and find fulfillment in all branches of life. With Johnny as your guide, you will break down the science of success and experiment with how you can combine key elements to uncover discipline you need to accelerate your journey towards prosperity. Now, on to today's episode.
Welcome to the Element Success Podcast, where we will explore specific traits that break down barriers between you and success. We will achieve this by bringing on guests so that they can share their stories of success. Today, we are joined by my co-host, Eric Johnson. Hey, Eric, how are you today?
Oh, man, I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Good, doing well. It's Friday, and it's sunny out, and it's fall, so I think all is well right now.
Agreed. It's beautiful out.
Absolutely. Well, today I've spent some time, and I really want to talk about this concept of evolution. And that's the definition that we're going to try to dive into of how we can, as individuals, use evolution of ourselves, of technology, how we can transform almost to be better than who we are or who we were. And really the definition of evolution is a gradual development of something, especially from a simple to a more complex form. Every time I think about evolution, one of the kind of analogies that really stick out to me is Bruce Lee, if you remember, always said that you want to be like a glass of water, right? Water can change into anything. If you put water in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. If you put water into a jar, it becomes the jar. And Bruce Lee used to encourage people to be more like water because that is the evolution of trying to become better in understanding your environment. I think one of the best ways that I've ever looked at evolution of technology is really reviewing Apollo 13. Eric, do you remember Apollo 13?
I do, yeah. I specifically remember them having to create something out of spare parts, right? For the survival of the entire crew, and just everybody pitching in, getting together and saying, this is what's there, what do we do with it?
Right, absolutely. And that, yeah, that's exactly right. I remember I wasn't old enough at the time that Apollo 13 happened to really have a memory of that life event. But I do remember watching the movie starring Tom Hanks with my grandmother when I was younger. And Apollo 13, so for those of you that aren't familiar with that story, Apollo 13 left from Kennedy Space Station in Florida on April 11th, 1970. They were destined to head out into outer space, and along the way there was an explosion on the spacecraft. And really, what that explosion caused was CO2 was starting to fill the cabin, which means eventually the astronauts were going to run out of oxygen. And the scientists that were back in Florida really tried to compute so much data in a short period of time that it actually fried the mainframe computer back at the NASA station in Kennedy. And really what it came down to were they came up with this idea to use basically cardboard, space duct tape, I'm imagining, and a slide ruler to create some sort of device where the astronauts could breathe and have the ability to rid of CO2 in the cabin. And that allowed them to enter back into Earth's atmosphere. They plummeted in the ocean and they were saved. It was a very heroic event from some of the world's largest and brightest minds that this planet has ever known with those scientists at NASA at that time. The reason why I'm bringing that up is in 1970, NASA's mainframe computer that fried from simply being so overloaded was basically the size of a 2,000 square foot office space. That's how large the computer was. So here we are in 2020, and the cell phone that I now kind of hold in my hand and FaceTime people, text people, has more computing power than NASA had in its all ability in 1970. In fact, this cell phone that we all now carry around, each of us, has 10 times more computing power than NASA had in 1970 at its power. And it is 10 times cheaper to make than that mainframe computer that NASA had built as well. So you can easily see from Apollo 13 how fast and rapid technology has advanced. And I like to use that analogy because that's not the only thing that's advanced over time. In fact, if going back to that concept of cell phones, Eric, do you remember getting a phone call maybe in high school or middle school and having to stand near a wall or see how long the cord could wrap around your house just to talk on the phone?
Yes, and my favorite part was that I would answer the phone in the dining room, and then I'd have to set the phone down, run back to either my mom's office, or later when I was in high school, I had a phone in my room, which was a huge deal, right? I mean, that was a big deal. So I'd have to run back there, take it off the receiver, set it down, run back to the dining room, hang up that phone, run back to my bedroom to use that phone so I have a little bit of privacy.
Right. Yeah, and I was the same way, and it was funny because I would kind of try to get that cord as long as I could, and then I would shut the cord in my bedroom door and then kind of lay on the floor by my bedroom door just to talk on the phone. And what's really evolved, though, is you think about when cell phones came out, it was the ability that you weren't tied to that cord anymore, right? You could go anywhere and talk on the phone. Well, today's environment, it's texting, right? I feel like people text more than they actually talk on the phone. So we've seen this evolvement of the cell phone. I think the next step, you can agree with me on this, but I think because of COVID, FaceTime and video conferencing is going to be eventually the new mode of texting that will probably talk screen to screen more often than we do texting, because that's the way the world is going, and it's becoming more and more normal. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. And the reason, for personally, I think it's going to be more of the FaceTime, more of the face-to-face conversations, is texting was great for when we could actually see each other in person. And so texting was a simple, get by until we do see them. The problem is that we can't see each other in person nearly as much as we did before. So I think it's more important than ever to get on FaceTime, to get on Zoom calls, to get on whatever platform you want to use. It doesn't really matter, but to actually see people face to face and have that conversation.
Absolutely. And the reason why I'm kind of leading us into this is I want people to understand the advancement of technology in general, but let's try to pivot here a little bit, follow along. What about the advancement of social media? What have we seen in terms of the advancement of social media? The really first massive social media that everyone has used was Facebook, right? It was pictures here and there. It was more content. It was typing up your thoughts. Even the bubble where you begin to type says, what are you thinking, or what are your thoughts? And it's really asking people to kind of put out their thoughts in word. Well, Instagram came along. In Instagram, you don't really type in content, you just share pictures and sometimes videos. So we've already changed a little bit there. Well, now TikTok is really, I think, taking over social media by storm at this point, and it's all videos. There is no typing of content. In fact, you can only type a certain amount of characters in your comment bubble on the video that you're posting. So they've limited your ability to even talk about anything. They force you to talk about it via video, right? And I think that's the evolution of social media right now. But let's expand on that evolution a little bit more. That evolution of technology has also created a wider net of your network, right? Let me propose this question to you. In general, do you think that friends that you've grown up with, people that are in your inner circle, maybe even some of your family members, would they rather see, the majority of them, would they rather see you be wildly successful or just as successful as they are?
Oh, I think most of the people in my inner circle are cheering me on. They want me to be wildly successful beyond what they are, and I want the same for them. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
I think that's all relational, but I'm not going to surround myself with people that are going to, that are going to be, oh, I want you to do okay, right?
Right.
I want those people that are
Right.
going to say, hey, yeah, give me good advice, and sometimes they give me bad advice, but I choose what I listen to, but at least they're buying into my success.
Sure, absolutely, and I hope that is the case. But what I have found out, over time, is some people in your inner circle, they may not want you to succeed because they feel like it's to their flight, right? It's to their detriment. Your success is to their failure. And I really thought about that long and hard, and my conclusion or what I believe is Facebook and Instagram, you're in control of creating your own circle, right? So typically the people that follow you or the people that you're friends with on Facebook, they are the ones that you've probably known for a long period of time. They are the ones that you might have grown up with or at least had some sort of personal interaction, right? And I think that when you first start out to try to be successful, and I think a lot of people struggle with this, when you first try to be successful, and let's say you create a business and you're promoting your business and you're year one into it, I feel like a lot of traction isn't generated through your own inner circle. There may be 2 to 3 to 4 likes on something that you promote or something that you talk about. And I've had that happen to me before, I've put out information about different financial aspects and different savings tips and get 1 like about it. But then I'll share something about one of the boys and I'll get 150 likes.
Very
so
true.
yes, they're invested in me, but they're not invested in what I'm trying to create in my business or my success. Right? Would you kind of agree with that sometimes?
Yeah. Now that I kind of see that perspective from a business side of things, I'd absolutely agree with you. People were much more hesitant to share the content that I was putting out when I was working with coaching and consulting and doing all that. Even though content was really good, and a lot of people did benefit in my circle, benefited from some of the nuggets that I shared, some of the things that I posted, because talking to them later, I realized that they were watching, they were reading, but not necessarily commenting or sharing or liking or thumbs up or any of those, little emoji things that they've got going on. But yeah, absolutely. And then of course, like you said, you post a picture of the kids, you post a picture of the new puppy. Good Lord, that blows up.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's like, this is my livelihood that I'm kind of putting out on my heartstring and hoping it does well. And I don't get that support from the people I assumed would be supporting me. And with COVID and Bora and I, we own a cafe, or she owns a cafe. I just happen to be married to her as she owns it. But she owns a cafe, and it was funny because when COVID happened, people started liking, what I noticed is people started liking more that she was struggling and we were putting it out that she was struggling than they did last year when we were trying to book birthday parties, right? And it's like, well, why are you now liking that we're struggling, but you didn't like before COVID happened when we were trying to promote her business? And I think I recently read an article, and this is what kind of gave me this idea, is there's 5 reasons that I wanted to kind of dive into why people don't want you to succeed. And the first one is hierarchy of power. So this is a personal need for their control, right? They get discouraged if they see you doing better than them. They feel like, well, that person's doing well and they're very successful, and so that discourages them from also trying to be successful. And it shouldn't be that way, right? We should all want to encourage each other to be successful. The second one is really feeling trapped. So if you succeed, that others begin questioning themselves and feel that they're behind in their own lives. So they start to say, well, if that person is here, why haven't I caught up to them yet? If we grew up together and we're on the same page and I had the same education as they had, why aren't we at equals? And they almost start to feel trapped into that mindset So rather than being inspired by someone's success, they try to be better, but to try to be better, it ends up bringing them back down because they're just trapped in their own mindset that they feel that it's to their detriment. The third part is really past regrets. So maybe they've tried to succeed, they have almost reached their dreams, and it failed, right? Something went wrong, something backfired. So because they failed at trying to succeed at their dreams, they resent you for trying to be successful or being successful with your dreams. So there's a lot of past regrets that could affect their mentality. The fourth one is hidden anger. Some people realize that the struggles you had to get there and the sacrifices that you made, a lot of people breed success out of adversity. I mean, me personally, I was laid off from a full-time third shift printing press job the week of Christmas. The week of Christmas, 2 months after Maddox was born. So imagine, being laid off the week of Christmas. In fact, Christmas that year was on a Friday. We celebrated Christmas on a Tuesday, and she did that just to try to make me feel better because I was devastated. I was tied to an employer who could care less. They were cutting payroll costs, and a lot of people could be going through that right now, right? So they have a lot of hidden anger because they realize that they're not willing to take some of the sacrifices that others have made, and so they bury that anger towards the person that's successful because they're just not willing to sacrifice. And I felt that way. When I was laid off from my printing press job, as I was graduating from college, I was really an angry person because it's like I work hard, I show up every day, I'm making $18.50 an hour. Why can't I be just as successful as this other person? So I think a lot of people struggle with that aspect of not wanting to promote someone that they know's success. The last one here is just misinterpreting a concept, right? So some people believe that if you work hard, and I kind of just pointed to this, if you work hard, that eventually that hard work is going to pay off. That as long as you continue to do the things that you should be doing, eventually you will be successful. So a lot of people have a misconception of that concept because they start to question their hard work in different areas of their life because they're like, well, I work just as hard as that person. I show up and work 12 hours a day and I do all these things. How did they get success and I'm working equally as hard as them or harder and it's not happening for me? So what ends up happening is they resent the person that's had success and it's really to their own detriment, right?
Yeah.
So the reason why I'm bringing up all of these reasons of this concept to go back to this evolution ideology is TikTok has evolved social media. Your circle on TikTok is no longer your inner circle, right? I mean, I have yet, and Eric, you follow our TikTok page and the story of Bora's recovery through brain surgery and all that. I haven't seen one person that I personally know on TikTok yet. I haven't seen one person. In fact, you before we got in this video, you mentioned like, hey, I commented on your post, and I didn't even realize that.
Well, let's be fair about that. I mean, my profile picture is a bull mastiff. It's a dog because I don't have my own.
That is true.
I don't have an account that's going to have my face on it just because I haven't signed up for it. I haven't fully bought into TikTok yet.
Right.
I haven't done any of the videos. I'm inspired by what Bora's story is and the things that you're doing with your boys. I'm the one that commented about you fishing for a bag off your roof that you might have to throw it back because of the size. But, so let's be fair. You couldn't have known it was me. It's not my name or my face.
Yep. And I will say the bag ended up there on the roof because of one of our boys. So,
of course it did. Of course it did.
They were seeing how high they could throw the bag and ended up on the roof. I think they threw it up there on purpose, but that's another story for another time. But TikTok has really given this platform to where it's not your inner circle who've watched you try to be successful. It's not your inner circle who hasn't supported a business idea. It's or an idea in terms of influence or success. It's millions of random people. And I think random people are more likely to promote your business and be behind you for your success than typically your own inner circle sometimes.
Wow.
Now, that's not always the case, but what I've figured out is your inner circle will start to support you once you become successful, right? I'll say that again. So your inner circle will support you once you become successful. But what if it took you 5 years to become successful? Who supported you during those periods of 1 through 4? Probably very few people, right?
I find that very interesting because as you were talking, I'm thinking, Facebook, that platform, you have your quote unquote inner circle, right?
Right.
But at the same time, you have a lot of other people that are friends, and I'm using air quotes on a podcast here, but they're friends. So I've got, 400 or 500 connections on Facebook that are friends. And so I've got past people from high school that I haven't spoken to in 20, 25 years.
Sure.
I've got people that, are acquaintances or I've met a couple times and they're just there and I see pictures from them every once in a while. When I think inner circle, I'm thinking family, close friends, the people that I'm seeing on a consistent basis, but you're still absolutely correct. I think there's a risk for them to support in their own minds because of whatever, some of the 5 reasons that you're talking about here.
Right.
But TikTok is different in the fact that like Facebook, you don't have an outside audience. And you're absolutely right with TikTok. You're building an outside audience that people you've never met before, a dog that you've never met before, right? Is supporting you on TikTok. And those people, I have seen that community come together. And in fact, I just watched one. I'm sure you've seen it before. The gentleman that him and his family always order pizza from the same place, and the pizza delivery guy is like 89 years old. He went to his TikTok followers, of which I think he has around 50,000 followers, and just said, hey, this guy's 89 years old. He's an amazing man. He's been on a bunch of their TikToks, and they just said, hey, here's an account we want to create just to bless him. And they brought in over $12,000 for
and that's amazing.
And gifted it to him, right? Those are strangers supporting strangers who want to support a stranger. That's crazy to me, and I think that's fantastic.
And we should, and I started to learn this because we have been sharing Bora's recovery, and it's been truly phenomenal. And I will say that all of our friends and inner circle that we do have on Facebook and Instagram have stepped up. I can't even fathom how incredibly blessed Bora and I are just to have the friends we have and the support behind us. But I shared that story on TikTok, and in 24 hours, it had 2.2 million views in 24 hours. I looked at the analytics, okay? It had 19,000 hours of playtime. So in 24 hours, her video had 814 days of playtime in 24 hours.
Achievement Christmas, almost 3 years.
And Facebook and Instagram cannot do that, right?
Yeah,
they just and she had over 600, 700 comments, 475,000 likes, all from random people cheering her on.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that because of the advancement of technology, the evolution of technology to video, to now sharing videos via TikTok, it's made it more personal and more interacting than just putting some language into a comment. And I feel like people need that. They need that influence and that support to truly be successful. Because go back to that 1 to 5 years. How many people have quit in 1 year into something because they knew it was a great idea, they knew they could do it, but they didn't get any support from the people that they personally know, and because they didn't get any support, they started to think it was a bad idea, so they quit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So my message here is I want people to really understand that regardless if you're not getting the support from those that you feel that you should, do not stop, because eventually 5 years from now, 10 years from now, all of those in your inner circle who didn't support you years 1 through 4, they will come back and support you more than you've ever seen once you get to that success level. You just have to have the determination to get there. I truly believe in this concept of evolution, and going back to the initial statement, if you put water in a teapot, the water becomes the teapot. If you have an idea or a concept or a business, whatever it may be that you want to accomplish, you have to become that idea, and eventually you'll be successful and get the support that you need. So don't give up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like it. I think those that are listening, feel free to continue to tune in and keep watching the episodes, listening to the episodes. You can look at us on YouTube. You could also find us on Apple Podcast and type in Elements of Success. If you want to follow us on TikTok, my TikTok name is johnny.wayne. Easy to find, so as soon as you type that in, it should pop up. Eric, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I do have a final thought. I want to challenge anybody who's listening to this or viewing this right now, that if you have some stories of how you overcame those 1, 2, 3 year objections that were in your own mind, and the feeling that you had of not being supported, maybe you got supported by the community that you started your business in, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people who, including myself, who got advice from my uncle, for instance. He said, don't start your own business. It's a very difficult task. He was extremely successful man in business, and I was absolutely shocked that was his response. But when I started my own business and I had reached out to some people in my community and in the community that my business kind of fell into, they were super excited that I was starting. They gave me great advice. They gave me guidance. They gave me leads. And they were very supportive, even though I had just met them maybe a month earlier. So I know that there are stories out there, and I'd love to hear from the listening audience. Any stories that you have that kind of fall in this range, share them with us.
Sure. Absolutely. We'd love to hear about it. I mean, feel free to message me on TikTok, your story of success, and I would love to we could do a FaceTime and talk about it and see how we could better promote your business or what you have going on to try to get influence behind you, because I can tell you right now, those years 1 through 3 are some of the most trying times into trying to create a business or whatever the case may be. A lot of people question me on turning down the FBI with a guaranteed job, guaranteed salary, guaranteed benefits, and becoming a financial advisor of literally knocking on residential doors. People call me crazy. They said, why would you do that? You've got a young family. But I took that risk. Even if the support wasn't there, eventually the support built up. So don't quit.
That's right.
We just want to thank you for listening to the Elements of Success. If you have not subscribed to the podcast, click the subscribe now button below. This way, when we come out with new content, it will show up on your listening device. We would love it if you would share this content with those that you would like to inspire. This is Johnny Dawson, reminding you, as you look for your elements of success, you're not alone. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Elements of Success podcast. If you have not subscribed to the podcast, please click the subscribe button below. If you know anyone who would benefit from listening to this podcast, click the share button.